Premier Simon Birmingham, a leading Liberal moderate, confirmed to Sky News it's not his intention to quit the shadow front bench over its opposition to the government's model for a voice to Parliament. It comes after Julian Leeser resigned from his position in order to campaign in favour of a yes vote. As there is a diversity of views within the Liberal Party, some Indigenous leaders are also pointing out the diversity of views within their communities. Jack Wilkie-Jans is an Indigenous artist in far north Queensland. He's 30 years old, deeply involved in his community, and doesn't believe the voice to Parliament is the answer to problems in those areas. So I caught up with Jack a short time ago.
When a lot of the consultation was taking place for the Uluru Statement and then, of course, for the Recognised campaign, which was sort of preceded the overall Voice one, I think what we've got a problem where everyone is compounding those the successes on those fronts to mean as though it was the same thing that could relate to the Voice to Parliament referendum, which isn't the case. So it's one thing for them to say, and people who are proponents of the Voice to Parliament, in the scarce sense that it is at the moment, is to assume that all equates to level consultation is just not correct. One of the things that I'm really keen to see is a little bit more detail, a lot more detail actually, and if that has to happen, well, as Albanese said, if not now, then when? Well, I would rather the when be a case where there's more formulated around perhaps certainly the function and the powers of the voice body. So I just think...
And you've said... And you've also said this argument, or the zero sum, that you're entirely with us or entirely against us, garbage needs to stop. Where do you feel that's coming from mostly?
Well, I'm finding that it's coming, quite sadly from the proponents of the Voice to Parliament, in particular, the likes of Noel Pearson. It's a really sad state of affairs where Indigenous peoples are pushing for a homogenised voice and viewpoint, which of course is not how our tribal interactions were ever the case. It's certainly not something I feel comfortable with, is perhaps speaking for other people's countries and their lands. And I don't think that that same cultural push is coming through on the Voice. I'm really quite concerned about where the lines in the sands are being drawn in terms of if you're, I've heard it on the radio, if you're a blackfellow but you're against the Voice, or if you're not even against the Voice, but you're probably someone in the middle where you're going, hold up a little bit, let's talk about it a little more. Well, then all of a sudden you're a blackfellow who doesn't deserve to have a voice on part of the Voice. So it's really quite sad. It's something that people like me have certainly copped on a more local level, with people around, people that who are in the community who are pushing for it. I find that really quite sad. And of course, because on the no side of things, there's a million different reasons. There's no uniform reason for a no vote, I suppose, from a great deal of people on the other side, because we're in a really strange position now where people who are Indigenous and they're not fully supportive of the Voice as it's presented at this point in time are finding that we've got a sort of strange bedfellows, I suppose, in other corners of politics and society. And it's quite strange to see that this voice that's meant to be uniting all these voices isn't actually doing it, but the No campaign seems to be.
Yeah, so on your doubts, let's just drill into that for our viewers this afternoon, because just reading your analysis, you've said that the entirely Australian approach to race relations, consultative bodies establish them, fund them, promote them as the answer to the Aboriginal problem, not map them out entirely, allow them to become dysfunctional, eventually fail, ATSIC 2.0 anybody, ? Is that your main concern, that this is not going to be mapped out properly, that it won't be properly representative?
It's not been mapped out properly at this point, and I suppose one of the things that I'm innately, especially coming from Cape York Peninsula, which is sort of the petri dish of Indigenous social and welfare policy in particular, the bureaucracy that we've seen in the past, certainly for black politics, such as ATSIC, such as other, perhaps even with native title and things like the land councils and the allegations of corruption across a number of land councils across the country internally, I don't believe that the bureaucratic system that exists at this point in time is at all effective from a black politics sphere. And I've got no reason to believe, in fact, every reason to distrust that the Voice will be any different. We've just not seen any model work. We've seen many models fail. And I just find it really hard to understand why it's too much to ask for regarding the Voice to Parliament, that these things can't be fleshed out a little bit more, especially considering that it's more than just a funded policy or a funded body. This is requiring constitutional referendum. I would think it would be important to at least see where and how it will help. I've just not seen any examples of it that are effective in the past. Certainly in tribal governance and social matters that are local, that works very well. But anything that goes too expansive, it's not representational. There's nothing really in what I've read regarding the proposal for the Voice that outlines any due process on how to be elected, what the criteria is for people to become elected, and then more importantly, what's the dispute scenario, what's the frameworks there? Because, if it's anything like APSIC, how that ended up, well, we're going to find that we've got another waste of everybody's time and money and energy.
What if it's based on established processes like around the land councils?
Well, I'd be very reluctant to go to seek my representation for my voice as an Indigenous person from those particular entities, especially as a traditional owner who's in Cape York. I don't know if you or perhaps some of the viewers or everyone might be familiar with the Cape York No. 1 claim that's been put across the entire of the peninsula in many ways. That's a disputed land claim, but of course the disputes get washed away. So we're seeing that the representation for certainly sub-regions or local areas, if you will, just isn't coming through from land councils or PBCs, prescribed body corporates, or any kind of native title representation or management body. So I really would be very hesitant from a Cape York perspective to lean on the Cape York Land Council, for example, to represent my voice in the Voice to Parliament when they haven't done so effectively on native title matters so far.
You have written as well that despite your concerns, due to the great risks to your collective voices, that you will still vote in favour of the Voice, despite the concerns you've raised this afternoon in our discussion and previously.
Oh, look, it's the way that this is all panning out. That opinion of mine, I keep that there in that piece because it comes and goes. Today, tomorrow, it might be different because it just depends on, are we being heard, for one? And, there will be occasions, especially with the regional advocates of the Voice that are sort of dispatched across the area. Cairns, for example, in Gimmoy up in Far North Queensland tomorrow has a meeting for the Yes campaign. It's quite strange to see people coming together in that sense, but you feel like you're being heard, and then a day later it's all being homogenised, has been washed away. Any concerns that are raised are never really followed through. They're certainly not addressed in any sort of policy framework that's mapping out what this body will actually achieve and how it will even function. So that opinion of mine is liable to change as we go. I suppose from a historic perspective and the fact that it is a big moment in history, no one wants to be on the wrong side of it. And I don't think that's the case with anybody. I don't think people really want to be against it as its potential. But I just think as it stands, I think people certainly have the right to feel concerned and definitely voice a no stance on the matter. This is it. This is the opportunity now for people who are pushing the Voice, people like Marcia, people like Noel, people like Thomas Mayo and the others who aren't listening, to actually perhaps give people like me who are sort of in this strange middle ground a reason, because without a reason, that opinion of mine will have to change to a no. Jack
Wilkie-Jans, well, it's been Fascinating to talk to you, to get your insights from Cairns today, but you are from Mapoon on West Cape York, and to get your thoughts on where this is going. Let's stay in touch. We'll have to talk again over coming weeks ahead of the referendum. I'd really like to stay in touch. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your time.